Story 1. The House with No Lights On. I've been an Uber Eats driver in Phoenix, Arizona, for long enough to think I've seen nearly everything the night shift could throw at me. Drunks who fall asleep before grabbing their food, stray dogs roaming the streets, creepy customers who stare too long through barely cracked doors. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what happened at that house on Camelback Road. The one I will never forget, no matter how many years pass or how many cities I move to. It started like the kind of shift I used to enjoy. Quiet and empty streets. The kind of silence that lets you hear every hum of your tires on the asphalt. I took pride in knowing Phoenix at night, the way the heat lingers in the pavement even at 1 or 2 a.m. The way the air feels slightly cooler but still dry enough to scratch your throat. The faint glow of downtown far off, like a dying ember. I liked the nights. I liked the emptiness. At least, I used to. That Thursday, around 1:40 inches the morning, an order came through for a burger and fries, nothing special. It was marked as a leave-at-door delivery, which usually meant I could just drop it off and get back on the road. I didn't even look twice at the address until I got closer, and by then, I already had a weird feeling, the kind that sits low in your belly like a knot you don't remember swallowing. The neighborhood itself wasn't bad. Decent houses, most of them built in the 82nds, with desert landscaping and big driveways. Some had porch lights left on, some had TVs flickering softly behind curtains. But the house I was heading toward, completely dark, deeper than just lights off dark. It felt abandoned the moment it came into view. No porch light, no interior glow, no signs of life at all. I pulled up slowly, headlights casting long shadows across the sandy front yard. Even with my lights on, the house seemed to swallow the brightness, like the darkness around it was thicker than the air around everything else. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but that's how it felt, like there was a vacuum around it, something that pulled in the light. I double-checked the address. Same house, same number, same no-knock, leave-at-door instruction. I almost canceled right then and there, but it was late and I wanted to finish my shift. So I grabbed the food, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the front porch. The air was unnaturally still, not even a breeze. The smell, though, was what hit me first. A faint, stale scent, like old wood and dust, mixed with something I couldn't quite place, something sour and almost metallic. It reminded me of an abandoned storage unit I once helped clear out, the kind that had been shut for years. I checked the windows as I approached, but they were pitch black, either heavily tinted or covered from inside. I didn't like that. I didn't like any of it. Then, as I stepped onto the porch, something shifted at the edge of my vision. A silhouette. Tall, thin, unmoving. It stood near the far corner of the yard, just beyond the reach of my headlights. At first, I thought it might be a post or maybe some weird lawn decoration, but lawn decorations don't stare at you. They don't turn slightly as you adjust your position. They don't feel aware of you. I blinked, and it vanished. I told myself, I imagined it, that it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but I could feel the hair on my arms standing up, the way they do when someone walks quietly behind you. I stepped closer to the door, placed the food on the mat, and pulled out my phone to take the required delivery photo. The lack of light meant I had to use flash. The moment I tapped the shutter, the flash burst across the front of the house like a lightning strike, lighting everything for a brief, blinding second. And that was when I saw it. The face. Pressed up against the living room window. A pale face, colorless almost, with wide, unblinking eyes, and a mouth slightly parted as if it had been caught mid-breath. The skin looked wrong, like wax stretched too thin, with faint blue veins tracing under it. The eyes were the worst part. They weren't just looking at me. They looked like they'd been waiting for me. My hand jerked so hard the photo came out blurry. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my phone. I tried to rationalize what I saw. Maybe it was a mannequin. Maybe someone inside just startled me. Maybe I was overtired, but deep down, none of those explanations felt true. Before I could even catch my breath, my phone buzzed. A message from the customer. 4 words. "Why did you use flash?" My heart dropped. I hadn't even made it back to my car. The message came too fast. As if they had been watching. As if they had been standing right behind the door. I didn't respond. I froze in place, waiting for something. Another buzz. "You woke him up." Him. The word sank into my chest like a stone. I didn't know who him was, and I didn't want to find out. I grabbed my phone and turned toward my car. Before I could move, the porch light, dead just moments ago, flickered on, then off, then on again. Not fully, just enough to see the window. The face was gone. I ran. I didn't care about being quiet or careful. I sprinted across the yard like something was chasing me. Though I didn't hear footsteps behind me, I felt watched. Though, felt like something was pacing right behind my shoulder, close enough that if I slowed down, it would touch me. I got into my car, slammed the door, locked it twice, even though once would have been enough. Hands shaking, I looked back toward the house. Nothing, just the dark windows staring back. Then, the phone buzzed one more time. "He's coming out." That text nearly made me drop my phone. Because the moment I read it, the front door creaked open. Not fully, just enough to see darkness inside. No figure, no shape, just a door opening on its own. I floored it, and didn't stop driving until I reached a brightly lit gas station miles away. Even then, I stayed in my car for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers hurt. Eventually, I checked the app again. The order had been canceled by the customer. No rating, no tip, no record except the blurry photo still sitting in my camera roll. I wanted to delete it, but something in me refused to look at it again. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the address. Google Maps showed a street view photo taken 3 years earlier of a house that didn't match what I saw at all. The windows were boarded up. The front door had a huge "No Trespassing" sign. The yard was overgrown. The house looked abandoned, completely unlivable. I checked the date twice. Same house, same number. But the version I saw last night looked lived in. It looked maintained. It had furniture inside. Someone had answered the messages, or something had. I reported the address as unsafe and avoided that area entirely for weeks. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving through certain dark neighborhoods, I get the same feeling I got standing on that porch, that heaviness in the air, that silence that feels aware of you. And every now and then, when I check my completed deliveries, I swear I see a familiar address flicker on the screen for a split second before disappearing. I deleted the photo eventually, but not because I wanted to. Because every time I scrolled past it in my gallery, I felt like the face was a little closer than before, a little clearer, like the reflection behind me was starting to take shape. I don't work night shifts anymore. I don't deliver to houses without lights, and I never ever use flash if I can avoid it. Because whatever I woke up in that house wasn't sleeping, it was waiting. And I don't think it's done with me yet. Story 2. The Man in Apartment 3B. I've been a DoorDash driver long enough to recognize when a delivery feels off. Normally that means an address that doesn't match the GPS. Or a customer giving vague instructions like, "Just slide it under the door." Or the occasional apartment building that smells like mold and reheated cigarettes. But what happened in that building on the east side of Columbus, what happened in apartment 3B that night, changed how I look at every dark hallway, every quiet landing, every flickering light bulb. I still avoid that entire neighborhood. I still check ceilings without even realizing I'm doing it. And no matter how many times I tell this story, it always feels like something is listening, something that remembers me the same way I remember it. It was during the pandemic, when apartment deliveries were non-stop. People didn't want to go outside, so drivers like me spent hours running up and down staircases, balancing food bags while trying not to breathe in whatever coughs or arguments leaked through the walls. That night started normally enough. Taco Bell order for Apartment 3B, a crunch wrap, 2 tacos, and a Baja Blast. Easy. The kind of order that doesn't mean anything until it does. The building looked old, even from the parking lot. 3 stories, brown brick exterior, rusty balconies patched with mismatched paint. A dim yellow security light flickered above the main entrance. The front door was propped open with a brick, which felt wrong immediately. Nobody in their right mind leaves an apartment door open in that area, not even for a minute. I remember standing there for a few seconds, staring into the dim hallway, feeling the cold air roll out, like the building was exhaling. Inside, the hallway lights flickered every few seconds, casting long shadows that jumped and shrank in the corners. The carpets were stained, the walls were scraped and dented, and the smell was the first thing to hit me, wet carpet mixed with something sour. I've delivered to some rough places, but this one felt hollow, like the building itself was tired, like it didn't want anyone inside anymore. I started climbing the stairs, one hand on the railing, the other gripping the bag. The second-floor landing was quiet, too quiet. Usually you hear TVs, voices, footsteps, something. But that building felt dead. When I reached the 3rd floor, I hesitated. Something about that landing felt different. The air felt colder, like I'd walked into a refrigerator. My breath didn't fog, but it felt like it should have. Then I heard it. A whisper. Male. Close. At first I thought someone was talking inside one of the apartments, but the whisper wasn't muffled like it came through a door. It was right there in the hallway, like someone was standing just out of view. I took a few steps, listening, trying to make out the words. It didn't sound like English. It sounded reversed, like someone playing a recording backward, slow, wet, and deliberate. As I approached apartment 3B, the whispering grew louder, then suddenly stopped, not faded, stopped in one instant, like someone held their breath mid-sentence. I raised my hand and knocked lightly. The silence was immediate and suffocating. Then, a soft thump, something pressing gently against the door from the inside. Then I heard it. A man's voice, right on the other side, low, shaky, terrified. "Is it safe out there?" I froze. My brain scrambled for something normal to say. Your DoorDash is here." Silence. Then the faintest trembling sound like someone pressing their ear against the door to listen. "Is the hallway safe right now?" he whispered. Yeah. It's just me," I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I didn't believe them. Another long silence. Then he said, "Put the food down. Take 10 steps back so I can check." It was weird, but not the weirdest request I'd heard during the pandemic. People were paranoid. Some wouldn't even open their door until I was back on the stairs. So, I placed the bag down softly. Then I counted 10 steps backward. The door creaked open just a crack, just enough for me to see an eye peeking through. Bloodshot, wide, terrified. The man stared at me like he was trying to see if I was still from myself. "Did it follow you?" he whispered. I felt my throat tighten. "Did what?" He opened the door a little wider, enough for me to see behind him. His apartment was pitch black. No lights, no TV, no phone glow, nothing. Like he lived in the dark on purpose. His clothes were wrinkled, stained, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "There's something in this building," he whispered. "It likes footsteps." Before I could respond, we both heard it. A single footstep, but it didn't come from the stairs or from either end of the hallway. It came from directly above us. A slow, deliberate step, creaking through the ceiling. The man in 3B tensed. His breathing quickened. "Don't move," he whispered. Another step above us, closer. He looked up as if he could see through the ceiling. His hands trembled. He grabbed the food bag but didn't retreat into his apartment. "It knows when you're alone," he said. "If you stay still, it loses interest." A third step above us. Then, something else. A dragging sound, like something pulling itself across the ceiling using elbows, knees, something heavy and damp. My entire body went rigid. The air felt thick. I could feel pressure in my ears like being underwater. The building felt wrong. And the ceiling above us creaked again, this time directly over my head. It sounded curious. The man grabbed my wrist suddenly. His grip was ice cold. "You need to leave," he whispered urgently. "Now, before it realizes you're not part of this floor." The hallway light flickered overhead. Once, twice, then stayed dim. That dragging sound above us stopped. For a second, then shifted toward the stairs. I didn't wait to learn what it looked like. I stumbled backward, then ran down the hallway, nearly slipping on the stained carpet. As I reached the top of the stairs, I swore I heard the ceiling creak again like something pacing above the landing I had just left. Halfway down the stairs, I heard a sound behind me. Not a scream exactly, more like a strangled gasp. From apartment 3B. I didn't stop. Didn't look back. I burst out the front door and sprinted to my car. When I got inside, I locked the doors and looked up at the building. There, on the third-floor window directly above 3B, something was pressed against the glass. A shape. Tall. Bent. Too many joints. Its face flattened against the window, watching me as if learning what drivers do when they're afraid. Its eyes didn't blink. It stayed there the whole time I backed out of the parking lot. I didn't breathe until the building was out of sight. For weeks after, the memory stayed with me. The eye at the crack in the door, the dragging on the ceiling, the shape in the window. I reported the building as unsafe. A few months later, I saw a news story. The place had been condemned for structural issues. But I know the truth. The structure wasn't collapsing. Something inside it was. Something that moved between floors. Something that followed footsteps. Something that watched from ceilings. Something that learned. And sometimes, late at night when I'm delivering to another apartment complex, I'll hear a faint creak in the ceiling above me. Just one step. Slow. Testing. Waiting. Like it remembers me. Like it's still hungry. Like it's wondering if I brought anyone with me this time. Story 3. The Last Customer of the Night. I used to work the graveyard shift at a little 24/7 convenience store on the south side of Flagstaff, right off the old highway. Most people who live here call that stretch the desert throat, because the wind never stops blowing and the night feels like it's trying to swallow you whole. It wasn't the kind of job you brag about. It wasn't even the kind of job you put on your resume, unless you wanted the hiring manager to ask, "Why were you working there?" But it paid enough to keep my rent from bouncing, and it let me take online classes during the shift when things were slow. It's true that working past midnight brings in the weirdest people. Drifters, truckers, drunk college kids, sketchy guys who swear the FBI is after them, Tourists who looked like they accidentally wandered into the wrong dimension, those were the usual. But nothing I'd ever encountered, not the guy who tried to buy gasoline with a dead squirrel, not the woman who whispered to her reflection in the freezer glass, prepared me for the night of November 18th, 2022. Because that was the night I stopped believing that the scariest things in the desert were coyotes, or tweakers, or men with bad intentions. Sometimes the desert itself watches you, and sometimes something in it follows you inside. It was a little after 1:30 a.m., one of those nights when the air outside is so dry your lips feel like paper. The store was dead. The hum of the fluorescent lights was the loudest sound in the room, buzzing just enough to make me feel like I was losing my mind in tiny, microscopic increments. I had just finished mopping the soda spill from earlier and was scrolling through my online coursework when something flickered on the security monitor. Just a blip. A couple frames of static on camera 4, the side parking lot. That camera is old. Half the time it looks like it's recording from the bottom of a fish tank. I tapped the monitor, leaned closer, and squinted. The lot was empty, not even a car passing by. No wind strong enough to set off the motion sensor. Nothing. But the motion alarm had triggered. Probably a moth, I muttered. But my stomach twisted anyway. You know that feeling when your instincts warn you about something before your brain can justify it? That's what it felt like. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Like the air pressure had changed. Around 1:47 a.m., the front doorbell chimed. I looked up, expecting some drunk NAU students. Instead, a man I hadn't seen before stepped inside. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'6", 5'7", but he felt taller than he was. His presence carried weight in a way I can't fully explain. He wore a dark green, old-style canvas jacket, the kind I'd seen hunters wear. Not new, faded, dusty, frayed at the sleeves. Under the fluorescent lights, his skin looked pale in a waxy, unhealthy way. Not sick, pale. Something else, like he didn't spend much time around people anymore. Or maybe he didn't spend much time alive. That sounds stupid, I know. But the thought slammed into my mind the moment I saw him, and it refused to leave. His eyes were the worst part. They didn't adjust to the light. Most people, when they come in at night, blink or look away for a second. His pupils didn't react at all. His eyes stayed locked on me from the moment he crossed the threshold, not even glancing at the aisles, like he had walked in with a very specific purpose, and I was that purpose. I forced a polite smile. "Evening," I said. He didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't blink. He walked straight to the back of the store, to the refrigerated beer section. I watched him on the monitor as he opened the cooler door and stood there. Just stood there. Held the door open and stared into the drinks like he didn't know what they were. Like he'd forgotten how to choose. Or maybe, like he'd forgotten what people were supposed to do. Okay, I whispered to myself, definitely drunk or high. After maybe 2 minutes of him not moving, the bell chimed again. A woman walked in this time, wrapped in a hoodie, her hair in a messy bun. She looked exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that sinks into your bones. But the moment she stepped in, she froze. I didn't even have to look to know what she saw. Her eyes were locked on the man in the back. "Do you know him?" she whispered. "No," I said. She swallowed hard, then lowered her voice further. "He was in the parking lot. I thought he was a statue." Something cold slipped down my spine. "What do you mean a statue?" "I mean, he wasn't moving, but he was standing facing the store. Not the door, the whole building, just facing it, like he was waiting." Camera 4. The flicker. The motion trigger. My stomach lurched. Before I could ask anything else, the man closed the cooler door and walked back toward the counter, slow, heavy steps. Like each footfall carried weight. He put a single can of beer on the counter. No brand anyone ever buys at this store. No label I recognized. Just a silver can with a dark green stripe around the middle. We don't sell this brand, I said. It must have been left inside by someone else. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't ring it up. He slowly lifted his gaze from the can to my face. You do sell it, he said. His voice was low, not deep, not gravelly, just low. Like he hadn't used it in a long time and the words were scraping their way out. We really don't. Check again. The woman stepped away from the counter, inching toward the candy aisle. Her breathing quickened. Sir, I said carefully, if you want, I can help you find another. You do sell it, he repeated. You sold it to me before. I tried to laugh lightly. I've never seen you before. He stared at me, unblinking. You have. The silence that followed felt like someone had taken a vacuum to the air. I couldn't look away, couldn't blink, couldn't think. His eyes felt wrong. The longer I looked, the more I realized what was wrong about them. His pupils were too large. Way too large. So large that almost no iris was visible. But even that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was that they weren't reflecting the store lights. Human eyes always catch some reflection. His didn't. They were black, but not like pupils. Black like holes. Like if I leaned closer, something would pull me in. I stepped back. I'm sorry, sir. I really can't. There's someone behind your store, he said suddenly. I froze. What? Someone behind your store. By the dumpsters. He's waiting. A chill gripped the back of my neck. The woman whispered, What the hell? Sir, I said, the back door is locked. No one can be back there. His head tilted, slowly. Too slowly. Like a curious dog. Or like he was hearing something far away. You should tell him to leave, he said, before he comes inside. Then he lifted the can of beer, opened it without looking, and poured it onto the floor. But the sound wasn't right. It didn't splash. It came out too thick, too slow, like syrup, and the smell. It hit me so hard my eyes watered. Not beer, not alcohol. Something metallic, wet, blood. I staggered back. Sir, what the hell is that? The liquid hit the floor, viscous and dark. Not red exactly, more like rust diluted in water. The woman screamed. The man didn't react. Not to the scream, not to the smell, not to the liquid pooling at his feet. He simply placed the empty can on the counter, very gently, stood up straight, and said, He's here. A massive crash slammed against the back door. The whole store rattled. The woman bolted behind the counter and crouched down. I stared toward the storage room where the sound had come from. Another crash harder. And another. The back door hinges squealed. Something was forcing its way in. Call the police! She screamed. My hands shook as I reached for the phone. I dialed 911, but the line didn't ring. It didn't even connect. Just static. Heavy, suffocating static. The man in the green jacket slowly turned toward the back of the store. He followed you, he said. I what? I choked out. You unlocked the door for him. I did not. He looked back at me, and for the first time, he blinked. Just once. A long, deliberate blink. You looked at him, he said. That's all it takes. Another crash. Then the back door slammed open. The sound was so loud I flinched. The woman screamed again. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a fist. I expected a person, a man, a coyote, anything recognizable. But what stepped, or rather dragged, into the hallway was not anything I'd ever seen before. Something long, thin, too thin. Its limbs were stretched, elongated, bending at wrong angles like someone had grabbed a human silhouette and stretched it like dough. Its head was tilted unnaturally far back, jaw hanging open as if broken. Its skin was the color of wet sand under moonlight. Its fingers scraped the tile, dragging like dull knives. And its eyes. God. Its eyes were identical to the man's. The creature shuddered forward, joints cracking like branches snapping under weight. The woman buried her face in her hands. I couldn't move. My legs felt fused to the floor. The man in the jacket simply stepped aside, as if giving the creature a path. "It wants you," he said. "Why?" "Because you saw it." "I didn't." "It showed itself. You looked. That's all the invitation it needs." The creature's head twitched toward me when he said that. It moved in short, jerking motions, its limbs twisting like it had to remember how to use them. Its mouth widened, not like it opened, but like the skin around it pulled taut, ripping slightly at the corners. I finally snapped out of my trance. I grabbed the woman by the arm. "Run!" I yelled. We sprinted toward the front door. The man didn't stop us. He didn't even turn his head. He simply said, "It won't help." But I didn't look back. We burst through the front door into the freezing night air. I could hear the creature scraping across the tile behind us. I could hear its limbs dragging, catching, then repositioning, with horrible, jerking pops. We made it to her car. She fumbled with the keys, sobbing. "Please, please, please." It was close. I could feel it. The scraping, the breathing, if you could even call it that, whispery, like someone inhaling through a cracked pipe. The woman unlocked the door. We shoved ourselves inside. I slammed my hand on the lock button. She turned the key. The engine sputtered. Didn't start. "No, no, no, no." She tried again. The engine coughed, weakly. Then I saw its shadow slide across the pavement. Long, distorted, wrong. It was coming around the side of the car. I screamed at her. "Go! Just go!" She twisted the key again. The engine roared to life. She floored it. The car fishtailed out of the lot. I didn't look back until the store was just a shrinking cube of fluorescent light in the distance. And even then, I only looked for a second. Because standing outside the glass doors, illuminated in that pale, sickly glow, was the man in the green jacket. Just standing, watching us leave. And behind him, pressed against the inside of the glass, was the creature. The store burned down later that night. Officially, it was faulty wiring. But the fire chief said something strange. He said the back door looked like it had been forced outward, not inward. Like something inside the store was trying to get out. The woman moved out of state. I don't blame her. As for me, I still live in Flagstaff. But I don't take night shifts anymore. And sometimes, late at night, walking to my car after class, I feel someone watching me. Not a person. Not an animal. Something else. And on 3 separate occasions, I've seen a tall, thin shadow just beyond the streetlights, too long, too out of place, too still. And every time, for reasons I can't explain, I feel like I'm being punished for looking